Okay, at this time we will call the meeting to order. We welcome everyone to the McDowell County Commissioner Boardroom. Really your boardroom. We just sit here and occupy the chair and do the business. So at this time we begin every meeting with a prayer and a pledge. So I would like to ask everyone to please stand at this time. And tonight Commissioner Crawford will lead us in the prayer and Commissioner McPeters will do the pledge.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come together tonight as a county to meet. We ask that each and everything that we do in this meeting be in accordance with thy will. We ask that you be with each and every one of our citizens as they go through their everyday lives and they all can prosper. Keep us safe and make sure that we do what's right in our country. I ask that you find peace in our country, find peace in North Korea, keep our armed services safe, and forgive us of our many sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, gentlemen, this time you have the minutes in our agenda packet. You've read those. What's the pleasure of the board concerning the minutes as presented?
Motion approved July 10th, 2017 regular session minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, we have our agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions by staff and by board members? Would like to add one thing, Mr. Wooten, discussion on the looking at the health department and it being run by the county.
Okay.
Discussion. Okay. We'll do that under old business.
One other thing I'd like to add, and I don't know, Ron here?
He is.
Ron, do you have any kind of updates on the shooting range?
I haven't heard anything as of when I came in here.
We have that in our old business. It'll be a brief update.
Okay.
We can have that.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other additions or deletions?
Mr. Chair, make a motion we approve, same.
Okay, do we have a second? Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, let's get right to the business, gentlemen. At this time, we have a 505 appointment, and we have our esteemed tax collector with us tonight, Miss Linda Onufrey. All joking aside, she does an excellent job, and as a taxpayer, I appreciate your thoroughness and make sure everything moves smoothly. So, go ahead, ma'am.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. It's been really a crazy Monday, so hopefully I can get through this without something happening. I'm here to submit the 2016 tax year settlement. I believe you have all those documents in your packet there that breaks down to all the county and the district taxes collected for the fiscal year 2016-17. I'll put my glasses on so I can see. Also, we have the copy of the 2016 unpaid real and personal property that in this binder here I'm going to submit to you. We have no motor vehicles because motor vehicles, of course, tax tag went together a few years ago, and so we'll have to that.
Everybody at home wants to hear what you have to say.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. The outstanding real and personal property for end of fiscal year June 30th, 2017 was $143,419.63, which that put our overall collection rate to 99.22, which is up 0.1%. Here.
Good job.
And the delinquent collections was $252,569.93, which was a decrease of $154,118.85. It's getting a little bit harder to collect them older ones. That's it for that. Settlements. And
Okay, Mr. Wooten, anything you want to add, sir?
Just a professionally run department. You can count on Linda and her staff to treat everyone fairly. It sometimes is an unpleasant job because of what it is. It's taking money from people, but she does a great job, and so much for her staff doing a great job too. So I don't say it enough. I appreciate the job you do to help us out.
We really do enjoy, working with the public. We try a lot of different things to collect the taxes easier, make it easier for the taxpayers, with the payment plans yearly and throughout the year to get them paid, making it, best for them. So we try to really work hard.
It's pretty simple to me. If you don't do your job, we don't fund anything.
Yeah, it's
You're doing really good.
big part of what we collect. So that's it. I just need approval of my settlement.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the tax collection settlement and order of collections.
Second.
Presented.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay.
And the order of collections to give me for 17-18 fiscal year.
I included that motion, did I? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, is that part of that?
he got it.
Do it once.
All right, that's it. Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, Linda, thanks. Let your staff know we appreciate their hard work.
Thank you.
Did a great job this year, as always. All right, at this time, we'll move to item B on our, we're a little ahead of schedule, 5 minutes. Let's go down to item number A, the DOT transportation update under old business. Mr. Wood.
Okay, it's a pretty big topic and item that we've been talking about. It seems like many years. Maybe that is the case, but recently we've been focused a lot, as staff and board and community, on the transportation system recommendations for the county. And so where we're at is that NCDOT has prepared several reports and recommendations and plans on how to implement a transportation system here in the county. And so again, there have been thoughts and recommendations on a regional approach, and then choosing to do something more so at the county department level. And so or keeping the status quo, which would keep the function in DSS and a DSS function, which I don't think, no offense to the folks that are operating that now, they do a great job, but there are some limitations by keeping it like we have it now. And so the preference would be to separate that out into either the county department or the regional model. And we have had several looks at the function to try to identify the cost. We've talked a couple times in this room that it's very difficult to get a total grasp on what this function costs. Some of the costs are easily captured. There's a contract, for example, with the senior center, and it's a county department, but that department pays the DSS department so much per rider, and there's maybe one or two other contracts. So that's easy to determine what that cost is for that trip, but otherwise it's a little hard to determine. A lot of it depends on the folks being transported to a medical appointment, if they're being billed for Medicaid and that sort of thing. So it's not as easy as just looking at it and say, this is an easy thing to figure, it's X amount of dollars, and this is how we would do it. So sometimes the complicating factors make a decision and very difficult and can drag it out more than we maybe think is necessary. So we have talked to NCDOT, and we had asked that they try to be here tonight to update on where they stand on cost analysis. They sent their apologies. The cost report is not finished, and they did say they could present it in September. We are approaching by September, we'll be approaching some funding deadlines for fiscal year 19, which would start on July 1st, 2018. They did say if the board waited until that time to make a decision on how you would implement transportation, they would work with us. So that would definitely be the latest that the county could make a decision in order to move forward with the transportation function in the next fiscal year. So they are going to be here in September and can provide more information at that point. And so we're essentially running out of time to debate the matter, to be honest, if we're going to implement something next year.
Mr. Wood, would it aid staff if we go ahead tonight, because we've looked at the regional approach, and we're still in the process of understanding. We've not got complete information back. Sure. And we considered the standalone with the county operating the transportation department. Would it help? Would it be beneficial to staff if we went ahead and just made a motion since she's going to be here from the state people in September, and it would give them direction? Would it be beneficial if we go ahead and make a motion to move forward with a standalone county transportation department pending funding approval from the state? And that way the lady who's doing the cost analysis at the state come in and have some more concrete information for us in September to speed it up, because we are, like you said, reaching a deadline.
Right. I think more time for us to have, obviously a month would definitely help us to take the function that we have now and to build it up as a standalone department. There's a lot of things that we would need to implement as far as policies and procedures and everything. So we will need that extra time if that's the direction. And so that would be appreciated on our end. And I think the visit in September can be redirected towards, okay, this is the board's decision, the community's decision. How are you as NCDOT going to help us get to that level of service?
And our partners that to the east of us would still be receptive if September came and the state had not the news we would want to hear. Right. As far as funding, then we could still, they're open and the line of communication would not be severed or broken.
Right, I think so. The communication that we've had with them is that they are willing partners, but they want to make sure that any decision that is made here, you're supportive of, and you have to make the best decision for this community. And if it's does it do a standalone department now and forever, or standalone now and maybe one day do a regional approach, I think they would understand and be very happy to work with us on information sharing and tips and that kind of thing, if nothing else. Very friendly folks down there, and just wanted to succeed here, if nothing else. So.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Okay, is there a motion? Anybody make a motion tonight?
I don't know exactly how to.
Yeah.
What I heard was, if I can restate it if you want, what I understood is that you were looking for a motion to proceed with the county-run department effective July 1, 2018, contingent on DOT providing the operating funds that they have provided for the other systems in the state. That's what I heard.
Okay.
I'll do it. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we proceed with a standalone transportation system pending funding from the state starting in 2018.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I second.
Discussion?
Maybe one thing I want to point out, we have been in a lot of communication with the Transportation Planning Board. You have a couple members here tonight. I think others may be coming later because maybe they thought it was going to be later on the agenda. I said sometimes it's hard to know the way we roll.
We're sorry about that.
But it's been communicated to me that through a transition that the Transportation Planning Board members very supportive, obviously, of moving forward and would offer their knowledge and experience to help implement a system. So they're very supportive of moving forward tonight.
Okay. All right, and we appreciate that board because here again, that's a volunteer board and they're a hard-working board, and we appreciate the input and the guidance they've given, helping to meet the transportation needs in McDowell County. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, let's go to our 5:15 appointment. We have a overview of Broadband, Morris Broadband Services, and we have Mr. Anthony Carter with us tonight. Mr. Whitney, if you want to introduce Mr. Carter. Sure. And Mr. Carter, the floor will be yours, sir.
Yeah. Again, we started last month sort of a get to know your current provider sort of process. And so last month we had Charter / Spectrum with us, and we learned a great deal about their system, and I think we'll receive a lot of good information tonight from Mr. Carter. I think the name Morris Broadband is still maybe new to some folks. I cut my teeth with the name Mediacom, and there was probably a bunch of other names before that, but he can explain a little bit about the company's philosophy and background, and then maybe some of the plans they have here and their technology and everything. So we'll try to get the projector going here if it'll cooperate. I have to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start a little bit. Just to give a little history, Morris Broadband took over from Mediacom in 2009. Morris Broadband is a division of Morris Communications in Augusta, Georgia. This is their only broadband system here in Western North Carolina. They believe in diversity and had some investments in Mediacom, and working with Mediacom decided to make an investment and take over the operations in Western North Carolina. So in 2009, one of the first things that we stepped in and did was build a fiber interconnect from Hendersonville all the way to the Nebo head in. This was a $3 million project, allowed us to do multiple things and to set us for the future. Allowed us to connect to the head in Hendersonville. At the time, there was only a few HD channels. We were able to launch over 45 HD channels when we did that, and also able to access a larger digital lineup. We also allowed us to connect Nebo, McDowell County to a more robust, fully redundant internet backbone. At the time, there wasn't a way to really sustain the internet growth that we were seeing going to happen, so we needed to connect to some place where there would be a big backbone for the future growth. That was another reason for the fiber interconnect that we built. We also wanted to prepare for the launch of what we call DOCSIS 3.0. It's the next advancement in technology that was coming down the pike at that time. So our next steps, once we completed all that, was to still make major improvements to our physical plant in McDowell County. There was a lot of older lines, a lot of older equipment. We need to make some of those replacements and continue that path so we had a reliable system within the county. We also had to start keeping up with broadband demands. Even back in 2009, it started. You could see a tremendous pickup. With cable capacity, you may have heard this from Charter, but there's only so many channels that you have in the plant. And one channel can provide an analog channel, an analog TV channel. That's a channel you can plug into the back of your TV without a box, per se. One channel could supply 12 digital channels, or 3 HD channels, or one channel, or one path or bandwidth to the internet. So in 2009, this is kind of an idea of what our network looked like. We'd have a larger, these are 2 fiber nodes. We'd have some larger fiber node here, a smaller fiber node here. Both would feed into one transmitter, and then one path or one channel to the internet. When we launched DOCSIS 3.0, that allowed us to increase the capacity to every customer by 300%. As you can see now, when we did that, there was 4 different channels or paths the customers could load balance on. During this time, we began to add additional fiber throughout McDowell County and to improve the services. This is kind of an idea of what it looks like when you're on 4 channels. This is our monitoring system, so we can look at customers and see how the performance of the network is doing. This is their upstream. This is their 4 different channels that they load balance onto the internet now. Instead of just one, and if that one's full, everybody slows down. This is 4 different channels they can load balance on. This is all of our signal levels and frequencies, so if it's in the green, that's good. So after we launched DOCSIS 3.0 in the beginning, and customers began to load balance on 4 different paths to the internet, we began to make that even better. For example, in this larger geographical area, we split that in 2 and added an additional transmitter, an additional 4 channels to the internet. So at that time, we started seeing in our network monitoring that the pipe was starting to fill up a little bit for customers. So that allowed us to add another additional 4 channels to improve the service level. In 2016, we saw that there was continued growth on the broadband services, so we needed to split it again and add 4 more channels for the path to the internet. So where we started out with just 1, now this area has a group of 16 different paths they can load balance on to make the improvement of services. This is kind of an idea of what our network monitoring looks like. This is in November 2016 when we made that last change. The utilization in the network was up here towards 60 to 70% average. That means at night, people could start to slow down and not get the services they want. This move dropped it all the way down to the 30 percentile, so that opens up the network wide open for everybody on that node. This done extremely well for us in 2016, and about 60% of the county and their nodes look just like this, plenty of bandwidth. But there are some areas in the last 2 months have started to go back up to the 60, 70%. So we're starting to see that congestion happen again. So we need to make our next steps. As we talked about with a channel or frequency, one channel can do analog channel, it can do 12 channels. So we need to launch an all-digital channel delivery. That was going to be later in the year. We've moved that up. We're going to start that in the next couple weeks. And what that can do is we have 62 analog channels on our network. We can take that and supply the channels digitally and open up about 50 channels that we can use for broadband infrastructure and broadband growth on that. It's a big step. We have to notify customers. If you're in an all-digital delivery, every TV has to have a little box on it so you can get the channels. We'll have to install thousands of boxes throughout the county before we can complete the all-digital delivery. Once we do that is not enough. If you go all digital, you have to take it to the next level. So we have made an investment in the backbone infrastructure to reallocate that capacity that we're opening up for the customers. We're going to introduce a new back-end gear that'll move all these nodes from 4 different paths to the internet to 16. So that opens up a lot more capacity per each node. So you saw that graph where it dropped down to 30%. That'll make sure that everybody's down there, they're getting their full bandwidth 100% of the time. It also opens up the opportunity for us to look at increasing the standard speeds and down the road offering higher speed packages via the coaxial plant. This is kind of what it looked like before in the monitoring system. You've seen this screen before. You have 1 channel on the upgrade, upload. You have 4 different paths to the internet that you load balance. After the launch, this is what it'll look like. There will be additional upstream paths that the customers can load balance on, and then they have 16 different paths or channels to load on for communication to the internet. That'll bring that percentage way down so there's full bandwidth availability. This is once that's done, again, this is the second time this slide's been up, but you'll have 16 channels to load balance on. But we're also taking it a step further. We've already invested in the licenses to launch DOCSIS 3.1, which is the next level of broadband delivery in McDowell County. We've already purchased those licenses to do that. That is the latest and greatest in technology. If you Google it, you can see DOCSIS 3.1 is what some of the bigger areas are starting to go to. We had to actually be on a waiting list for test modems. That's how new it is. But once we do that, we can take that additional capacity that we've opened up with the all-digital launch and change it to 32 channels per transmitter. So right here in the beginning, where you had one little path to go to the internet for all these people, now each area is divided up and each area has 32 different paths to launch the internet. That will give us the ability to launch more higher standard speeds than the 10 meg we offer now. It'll allow us to offer 300 meg on a cable modem reliably. It can also get to the point where we can offer 1 gig down on a cable modem as well. That's all I have on the broadband initiatives. I'll speak a little bit about growth. There's a lot of demand for broadband in the area, and there's a lot of areas that need services of any type of broadband. We're committed to investing in that. This year, we've invested in built to areas larger than we did all of 2015 and 2016. Our focus is on our current customer base and getting this broadband network to where it needs to be, so that way it's ready. It gives our customers the bandwidth that they're paying for, lets us offer additional services, but it builds it so that the growth that we can provide, it'll still be reliable and it'll have room for growth. The biggest challenge for growth and expanding is basically the cost. Whenever we go to look at an area, to get funding to build it, it has to meet certain criteria, certain financial criteria, payback period. We'd like to do that in 3 years. We're willing to go to 5. However, a lot of areas don't fit that. Some areas do, but any project that comes aboard, if it comes along that the board wants us to look at, we can look at. We can show what we can do into that area, and maybe there's a creative ways we can come up with the additional funding to do that. But again, we're committed to increasing the broadband services, making it more reliable to the county, and then looking at additional growth into the county.
Okay, comments or questions, staff?
The all-digital move, when's that going to take place?
We are going to bring in crews from outside that have their experience of this in about 2 weeks to begin analyzing our plant. We feel that it's ready. Once we do that, we'll begin notices in different areas of the county. We'll do a little area at a time so we don't overwhelm the county. We'll give them customers 30 days to call us and have a box delivered to them. We can install it, or they can come and pick one up, and then we'll move on to the next area. Once the areas are all digital, then we can put in that new infrastructure we purchased to launch it from 4 channels to 16 channels. So by the end of the year, we want to be all done with that.
Okay.
So we can launch DOCSIS 3.1, the latest and greatest in technology, in the beginning of 2018.
So the date that we could tell anybody would be look for it by the end of the year, right?
Completed by the end of the year.
Completed by the end.
You'll start seeing notices before that, completed by the end of the year.
Then that allows theoretically for higher speeds for the current
Yes.
customers. At least.
It will.
Which will, and also by the higher speeds, reduce the picture coming and going and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
When there's a high use of the.
Right, yeah, it'll do that. It'll also, when you're downloading and all that type of stuff, any slowdowns or anything like that, it'll address that. We've addressed that with all the different processes we did, as you saw, as we were splitting the nodes and making smaller areas and adding channels, it helped that. But this will ultimately take care of that for a long term.
And you, per your license, you can go anywhere in the county if it's feasibly cost effective for you.
Cable operators operate under state franchises now. So we can actually go, as long as we notify the state, we can go anywhere and, the state asks us to.
So does that mean you started Hendersonville, you came this way, so Old Fort, you could tag in the areas in Old Fort?
There's a possibility, the fiber interconnect runs a little bit down from there, but there's always something that we can look at to do that, to expand off of there. Again, it would just be putting together a project plan, looking at what the investment would need, and then we're always willing to invest in growth. It's just, would it fit into that model that would make be acceptable to get funding granted?
I know, I'm sorry, we have sent a couple of things to Mr. Carter to look at, and some they could help out on, some were just too far out. But if we were to, Mr. Abernathy's here with the Economic Development Agency, and so we being the community sort of know where there's these dead spots, and you probably know too, but if we were to identify those areas where it just feels like there's enough houses, and maybe there's not, but it sounds like you'd be willing to take
Absolutely.
a good hard look at it and say.
We look at every project that comes across our boards.
We've got What grade do we now, we're down to what, ninth grade that have the laptops?
The take home and
Take
then
home.
6 through 8.
Oh, yeah.
And so say we have
Is there-
kids going to McDonald's because of lack of internet access in certain areas. And if we tell, and we're partners with the school board who does an excellent job. We've got a great school board and we're partners with them in education on our end. But when they tell students, here's your laptop, and then you would want it to where a child could go to their house or a kid or a teen
Absolutely.
and not have to get packed up and drive into town and go to. So that's the ultimate goal for us, to make sure that. And I know you said you guys try to look at a 3-year payback on what you do. Is trying to get your money back in 3 years, and
Yeah.
you will go 5 years. So it sounds like there's some partnership that could occur with identification of areas that are
Yeah.
prone. And
Any
need
areas that you have, we'll look at, and I can tell you exactly what we can invest in. And then-
Is there a magic number that you have to look at a
It's
particular area?
typically, I can give you an example, kind of an example. We look at a 40% penetration. So if we pass 10 homes, we know we're going to get 4 to 5 customers, more than likely from that. And that, usually to get a typical payback, is $1,500 to $2,000 per customer we can invest in that build. So that kind of gives you a rough idea of how we can invest in. You know, it depends if it's aerial or underground. Aerial, a lot of times, can be a lot cheaper, and you can do a better investment than you can for underground. So it depends on the architecture, too. Aerial lasts a lot.
Well, I'll say this, I've probably been the one that's been pushing this harder than anybody, because didn't have internet in my house. This past week at the commissioners' conference, I sat next to a commissioner and I was talking to them about internet service, and he said he didn't have it. I said, well, I tell our kids to go to McDonald's. And he said, we don't have a McDonald's. I said, oh, we're doing pretty good.
We're not going to ask you to identify the county and the.
Yeah.
I said, oh, my.
I mean, I can give you an example. You know, West Payne Drive, this year, we added 25 homes because it fit into the scale that we needed to be.
And I might add, you guys moved out there quick, and,
Yeah.
and you got the stuff in the ground.
Yeah. So,
Right there.
you know, any project like that we can do.
That's sort of ironic that that's out around his house.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know that.
I'm an 18-year customer of DirecTV.
I'm just, Oak Hill Road and a couple other Highway 221, other areas we growth in.
For full disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, not particularly Old Fort, but the Sugar Hill area. It's, for charter, it's just too far for them to pick up,
Yeah.
which that would tie right in if your line's run. If
Yeah.
you're within that area, then there's a good possibility with
Yeah, we'd have to
Sugar
look
Hill
at-
that you could,
Yeah, where that fiber run is. But
Right.
if I had a geographical map you could be sent to me, then I can overlay it with our mapping and see what we think to do.
We'll be glad to send.
Sure.
Some of the data is a couple
Absolutely.
years old, but I don't think it's changed that much from
Yeah.
what was put together by the local broadband.
It's a challenge because, you know, we want to grow. Obviously want to grow. I mean, we obviously want to build to everybody if we can, but it makes it tough sometimes. Economic challenge of it.
So we'll definitely work to identify some of the areas that are close in to Morris and send those to Mr. Carter.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Carter, thanks for being here tonight. And
Thank you. I appreciate the
your information
time.
you presented, and
All right.
so
Well,
thank you for
thank you.
being here.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we do encourage folks that don't have broadband of any type. They can contact us here, and we'll do our best. We can't guarantee that we'll get them service, but at least it raises awareness for us, and we can pass that on to the incumbent providers. And then there are other options such as Skyrunner, others that are looking to develop in the county, that it creates opportunity for them, just areas that may be too far out anytime soon. The competition is good, and whenever we can help folks get that broadband is better for everyone.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, let's move to tick behind schedule, but we have our 5:30 appointment, and this is concerning the universal property and the planning process that's ongoing. And we have Mr. Mike Lovoy with us tonight. And Ashley, if you don't mind, sir, go ahead and lead us out.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll introduce Mr. Abernathy. I think he's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting on it. But again, just briefly, still some of his thunder, I guess. The county purchased the universal property in 2012. Again, it's been repeated, and I think it's not I guess it is an opinion, but it was maybe the best decision that was made in a long time in this county. It will pay off many dividends for the community and the college and a lot. But anyway, there is property there that there needs to be sort of a guiding vision for to help make sure there is some thought as to what happens. And again, you'll hear a little bit about it, but the county, city, and college all own property in close proximity. And Mr. Abernathy and myself and a few others thought it would be a good idea to have sort of a guiding document. Again, it's not written in stone, but at least to have sort of an understanding amongst the three parties what the property should be used for and how it should be developed. So hopefully I didn't take all of it.
You ready?
Okay, Mr. Abernathy, you're no stranger to this room. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
It's nice being a little less familiar. We've got 15 minutes. I'm going to speak somewhat quick. Ashley gave a great introduction. The topic, people think of this decision when it was made as being specific to the building, and the building is fully leased out and is generating substantial income. And then they also think of the partnership with the community college and the 50,000 square foot training center that's housed in the building. Okay, so that's the building. This is specific to the property. With the purchase came actually what, 300?
68 acres.
Yeah, it's 360.
Well, there's 300 plus acres of land which you're going to see on a map in a minute, which Mike Lovoy is going to review. So, McDowell County received a grant through Duke Energy, which was a $10,000 grant that was matched with $10,000 of county money. So it's a $20,000 amount. And we said we wanted to do two things with it. One, develop a master plan that would kind of guide the property. And two, let's see, what was to clear off what I call the pond site, which you'll see in a minute, get the trees removed, and which kind of is the first step toward preparing the site and grading it. And so that's kind of where we're going. So real big topic, and there's no way to cover all of it. The narrative for the master plan is probably 80% done, and we had hoped to have it bound and presented, and you'll have that. Actually, we'll distribute that to you next month. But we still wanted to stay with the presentation and give you an overview. If you look at the document that I passed out to you, the master plan will cover the following items. We will not do all of this tonight, but you'll have an introduction and an overview, which will give you a history and a background of why the county made this decision. Then there's a site analysis that's pretty well done already that will cover the access into the property, rail, topography, utilities, environmental, geotech, and have specific building layouts. Now, we were very fortunate with the ARC grant that we submitted in July, which is in the $1.2 million, $1.3 million amount, which is, if funded, will build access roads as laid out like you're going to see. We had that underway when we learned that the funds were available, so it was good planning or good luck, but it worked real well, and the grant is submitted, and hopefully we'll get that done, get that awarded. Ashley mentioned 3 of the 4 affiliates or partners that we have out there. Of course, there's the county that is a property owner, the city of Marion, which is a very important property owner, and there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done with them on the sharing, because the property is just really best to think of it as one track and not segmented properties, which is what we hope for. McDowell Tech, what you're going to see tonight will take care of McDowell Tech's needs for 50 years with enough square footage and enough building footprint to take care of them basically for all of our lifetime. And the college was landlocked on all sides with nowhere to go or grow. And so what we've basically done is a very long range thing here by taking care of them. So the affiliates and the partners are a third item. And then the fourth are specific goals moving forward. And here we get into things like, what do we actually want to see on the acreage? And the recommendation is going to stay general unless you redirect it, but it would be a business, industrial, public, joint property, as opposed to something that was more narrow that maybe limited our flexibility. There will be recreational uses, which we'll talk briefly about tonight. That's where the, County City College, and I skipped the schools, just like Ashley did.
I think they're lumped in with
recreation is really an issue for early college. And so we've had the public school system at the table on this, and you're going to see recommendations on some trails. And if we grade a site, then in the short term, or maybe a longer term, that site could be used, for soccer or recreational purposes. We want to have, in the coming month or two, a discussion of a shell building on the property, and then the grant for the road access, which we've submitted and hopefully will have funded. So that's where the master plan is going. So let me introduce Mike Lovoy. He is a civil engineer that was contracted for the purpose here. He had done some preliminary work on a program called Duke Site Readiness that we did through Duke Energy. So he had information and familiarity with that. He's do you go by ACE or ACE? ACE. ACE Engineering out of Asheville. And so he's going to walk through the properties and our thinking, and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Mike Lovoy, as Mr. Abernathy said, and I was just going to kind of go through and give you a little bit more of the specifics as to what we've kind of been through throughout this process. And so this is actually the entrance to the property. Just to the left, this is a little rendering we did that, potential is there to pretty up the area and make it a nice visual aspect from the beginning of the property. Just to the left here is the property that's owned by the city, and on beyond that a little ways is the property that's owned by the county. And so how do I just do page one? There we go. And so this was actually a map that we generated through the Duke Readiness program. We worked in conjunction with Duke Readiness to basically evaluate the site as a whole, the existing conditions of the site, as well as the general location of the site. And as you can see, I should have brought a pointer. You can see the purple outline. That is actually the 300 plus acres that the county owns. And then the red outline that you see is the property that the city of Marion owns. The yellow outline that you see is the property that we are proposing to be used as the, at this time we're calling it the Universal College and Business Park, which is a developable area that we plan to try to bring industrial and manufacturing and potentially some media centers or something like that. You can see centrally located in the property, of course, just to the south of I-40, we have the Universal building that's existing now that's at full capacity and potentially could even be expanded a little bit. But then down just south of that, we have a couple of nice-sized ponds that relate. They amount to about 6 acres of water surface. And there's probably 3 to 4 acres of flat terrain around those ponds that we can talk about, the possibilities of some recreational potential as we go down a little bit. But just to the on the east side of the page, you can see the blue color there. Those are really the only areas that are considered jurisdictional waters of the state that are close to the industrial park. Other than the blue line streams you see on there in the ponds, from an environmental aspect, the yellow enclosed area is very easily obtained without much environmental impact from an environmental standpoint. And so going to the next map. So zooming in just a little bit. Did I hit the wrong button? Whoops. Let's see here. All right, so this is zoomed in a little bit on the site, and you can see here that what we've done, we've worked a few different options from a master plan standpoint. In this area here, this is the pond site that Mr. Abernathy is speaking of. This is a 100,000 square foot building with the supporting parking infrastructure as well as truck court area that we consider our most pristine site. And right now, as it stands, the entire site is heavily wooded, and for the most part, the site is very steep, especially on the left side of the page. To the left side of the ponds, the site is very steep. To the right side, we're still wooded in some areas. There's some of the city property that's been cleared a little bit, but basically, we've come up with this master plan that we like. And this is very flexible. We've also come up with some that include a campus-style, smaller building type master plan, but we're kind of sticking to this one right now. And Joe, you don't have a pointer, do you? And so this property up here on the top, just to the north of College Drive, is the area that we're considering to be the college expansion area. And so everything to the south of College Drive, we're considering to be the industrial park. And so I'm gonna zoom in now and make sure I can. So this is zoomed in around most of the industrial park area. And one of the things Chuck was mentioning right now that we actually have already submitted is for the ARC grant proposal that would help us obtain the funds to be able to construct access roads to go ahead and enter into the property so that we could grade some of it as well as get the infrastructure down so that then some potential clients that were looking at the property would actually be able to go in there and visualize where their potential sites can be. And so when we break this down, we have 2 roads that we've gone after for the grants. Pond Road, which is here, that's accessing the pond site as well as a potential large industrial site, and then Shell Road here that comes all the way back. Pond Road is about 900 feet long, and then the Shell Road is around 2,300 linear feet or so. And what that would include for those in that grant that we've submitted for, it would include us going in and grading the site, clearing the site, and grading the road in, doing the stormwater controls for the site, the erosion control during the construction would be taken care of. Then it would include actually putting the stone down on the road and potentially paving the entire road. That's what the grant that we've requested for, which was somewhere right in the 1.5 million. If one of the things that we've discussed a little bit too is maybe even just paving half the road at this time so that we can accommodate utilities later, but we've also left enough. We've built these roads also to, or we will be designing these roads to current NCDOT standards in hopes that we would be able to turn these roads over to NCDOT so that they would be operated and maintained by them. So that grant is in place, and we're real hopeful. And with that grant, there is quite a lot of dirt. So just to give you an idea, too, where the 200,000 square foot building is the largest site on there. That is the highest point on the property, and that is at an elevation of around 1,460 mean sea level. And so that entire peak right there would actually have to be graded down quite a bit in order to make that large of a site. And so what we'll be doing is bringing that pond road up to a certain elevation, not that would be the approximate elevation of where we would see that building sitting once it was constructed. And so that will give somebody the ability to be able to drive up that road and literally be able to visualize, the elevation that that building would be at. We won't grade that whole pad at this time with the grant, but we would have the road graded. And then for the shell road, it's the same way. It's a little flatter road, and it kind of traverses along the terrain, and it's quite a bit lower. It would be about 50 to 70 feet lower in elevation than Pond Road. And it would travel all the way out to the end of the site, and potentially with the cuts that would be made in order for these roads, there will potentially be enough dirt that we would be able to use all that dirt on site to spread out for a shell building. And Chuck mentioned that a little bit. We haven't, of course, decided exactly which site we'd want to do that, so we have time to do that. That will just be an extra amenity that would go along with the grant, because it's a lot less expensive for us to put the dirt on site than to haul it off. And so we would use that dirt somewhere to build a pad for a shell building. Which one we decide on, we'll work together with you commissioners, as well as Mr. Wooten and Mr. Abernathy and others involved. So let's go on to the next one. Let's see, I'm going to go up. And so this is a zoomed out picture, and so you can see the green trails that I've shown are just some idea areas of where you could implement trail systems. And those the dark red trails you see, which partially is already done around the college. They've done the Greenway to the north of College Drive there, just south of I-40, has already been completed. But we would connect to that existing Greenway that's there with the dark red trails. And what I kind of consider those as would be beginner trails, walking trails that almost anyone could take advantage of. And there's about what I'm showing there is just a minimal amount. It's about 3.2 miles of loop trails, which I see as being a really big advantage. Then the green trails we're showing there are going to be more of your intermediate and advanced trails. And, the vision there would be to potentially have some lookout points, some picnic areas, some things where people could hike, take a break, maybe have a little picnic, hike around the property. There's potential, of course, to use the pond for some things. We've even shown some areas on there that could potentially be a community center, some pavilions, picnic areas. There's potential for frisbee golf. I mean, the list goes on with recreation. There's some other things that could be involved as far as educational aspects, using the natural landscape and then using QA codes that are, I don't know if you're familiar with QA codes, that are the real small signage that you can scan your phone with. That then you could, you could put all kinds of information for the aquatics that are there, for the plants and whatnot that's there, for which if you're viewing a certain mountain peak, you could use a QA code to tell people to educate them on what they're viewing and whatnot. So from a recreational standpoint, the property to the left is set up really well for something like that. So, and then I just wanted to, I know I'm running a little longer than I should, but so this is a detail of the roads, of the Shell Road and the Pond Road. And like I said, both of these would connect here off College Drive, and Shell Road's about 2,300 feet. And then Pond Road about 900 feet or so, and those would basically we would start design. The idea is to start design sometime at the beginning of the year, January, and then we would hope to be in construction sometime in the spring and potentially be completed with those two roads by the end of 2018. So, and I would be welcome. I'd welcome any questions you guys have. We had hoped. Oh, yes. Oh, let me go back to those. So these, what we've got, just to give you an idea, I know I haven't zoomed in. Let me zoom in real quick. So for the McDowell Technical Community College, what we've got is two 20,000 square foot buildings and two 10,000 square foot buildings, which is more than, in our discussions with McDowell Technical, would be more than enough to accommodate their needs for 50 plus years. And we did not have enough money in the grant at this time to do that road. Plus, in speaking with them, they don't foresee that need for quite some time. So we felt like it was better to appropriate those funds towards the industrial side of the site. But the MTCC is definitely involved and is located on this property as well. So, and then just to give you guys an idea, the county, just while we're on this, the county, the city line runs here and across. So this is the city property, and then everything else is county property. It's currently out. And then also we see, I know Mr. Abernathy mentioned a little bit, with the public school system, with the county public school systems, one of the things I see as a real benefit for them is using this site from an educational standpoint as well as from a recreational standpoint. But one of the things that you'll see in my master plan, I apologize, we didn't have it quite completed today, but one of the things I envision is doing things like some things that deal with weather, things that deal with hydrology, things that deal with animal species, plants and trees, things like that we could do and scatter around the site that could be used from an educational standpoint to help our young learn about things. So.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions from board members to Mike at this time?
I know it's exciting. I know Dave and I served on the board when we had the vote. Chuck's heard this probably 100 times. 3-2 on that property. But it wasn't just, and I'm glad Chuck said that, it wasn't just about that building.
No.
And you said it, Chuck, it was about the property around there. When I walked that property and saw the potential, how long ago has that been? 2012. Okay. Is that the potential for this piece of property to expand and move is a whole lot greater than what we saw really at the Ashworth Road. But the thing is, there's so many different uses. We were just sitting here talking a while ago. I know McDowell Tech has some ideas from a public safety standpoint, training areas, fire. It's always been my goal to have a good training ground to bring people in, because that's what McDowell Tech's doing now, is they're bringing people from outside that spends money in food and gas and spends time here. Is that the potential is just, it's astronomical what people own here, and that's exciting. It's not about the building, although that's what we focus on a lot, and it's the capacity.
And realistically, that's what jump-started this whole thing.
That's right.
Can I do real quick 2 or 3 things? The 100,000 square foot pad is what I call our A site. When we're asked to submit our best site in McDowell, in the whole county, that's our best site that I'm aware of. And so not only the building and the college, but we took and now have that kind of a site that is going to produce fruit one day. Second, to underscore what Mike said, we might come out of this with a graded 100,000 square foot, 50,000 shell building site, expandable to 100. Again, third thing is a takeaway. The whole site is in the city limits of Marion.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter who owns what. What matter? They're going to receive property taxes. You're going to receive property taxes. That design is not a city-county influence design, meaning the 200,000 is where it should go, and it's on city and county property. The 100,000, which could be 200, is on county property, but that's the best use. And the smaller buildings are the best use on city property. And it has nothing to do with ownership. It's just how the property should develop. And so really the goal is the maximization of the whole site, right, not just who owns what. And so your interlocal agreement with the city is going to be very important.
Yeah, of course, if y'all know, Mr. Boyette has been involved in these discussions from the beginning.
As has Dr. Gossett and Mark Garrett.
I've got a question, and this is looking even on beyond where we're at right now and what you guys are talking about. But how much more, looking at the western or northwestern part of the property, how much more of this property is developable?
Very little, if any.
Huh?
Very little. if
Very
any.
little.
It's about 70% of the property is undevelopable
Really?
from a large infrastructure standpoint. Yes, sir.
The closer those to, zoom out and do a quick engineering thing on your topography lines. See those, how close together those lines are?
Mm-hmm.
On the left, that means your property is straight up and down.
So this area here is very steep, and all of this area here is very steep. You've got some areas over in here. I'm not standing in front of you.
No,
You've got some areas in here, in this small area right here, that could potentially be developed. The issue is the access because of the ponds and whatnot. And it just seems, if there was some way we could come with some type of access from around this side, potentially we could look at that. But we need to get people, I think, interested in this other side that's a little more feasible at this time. And if we started running out of room and we wanted to try and put somebody on that other side, I think you could try and put some type of infrastructure to access that area. But as of right now, we're not looking at that area as a developable area.
and I understood that. I was just looking farther down the road.
The rail spur. The little,
Oh, off this, yeah, I did, because but there, we also do have the railroad, CSX coming through here. You know, one time we had proposed a rail spur right here. Problem with that is the elevation of the rail spur is so much lower than the rest of the developable areas that there would have to be a second facility that they would be able to take their product or whatever it may be down to a rail yard and then put it on the trains. And the ones that we've talked to have not been real receptive to that.
so even though CSX is right there, it's really not a good rail site because you don't have enough distance to eliminate the change in elevation.
That's right.
It's too steep.
But from the utility standpoint and the rest of the infrastructure, it's in place. We've got broadband, we've got gas, we've got power, we've got more than enough power for anything that could go out there. We've got water that's actually been run all the way to the building now. We've got sewer out there, so everything is, as far as infrastructure wise, is set up and ready to go for the property. It's just now to the point that we feel like it's hard for someone to go out there and visualize what can really be there when it's so steep. Of course, you know, we've been working in the mountains a little more so than some others, and so I can kind of visualize it sometimes, but even I have a hard time doing that. So to get these roads in, you know, I think is really going to be a really big first step towards getting someone real in there.
Well, if not roads, but recreational usage.
Recreational usage could be started anytime you guys want.
Go to Black Mountain and look at their town.
Lake Tomahawk, is that the name of the?
It is Lake Tomahawk. And actually, these
around
pictures that I show on here, that you see the two pictures in the top left there, which could easily be done around the ponds there. Those are actually all three of those pictures are from Tomahawk, which is what I envisioned around the pond. Gorgeous. Some of you gentlemen have seen them, of course, but it's just a gorgeous area.
So thank you for the work that you guys do.
Okay, we look forward to more information forthcoming and how we can just make this and plan for generations to come.
Mainly is if you guys have concerns, we're here getting feedback.
Okay.
Start tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. At this time, let's move to item D on our appointment schedule. This would be the workforce pipeline update. We have Mr. Jerry Broome with us. Jerry, Ashley, you want to go ahead and preface, and then Jerry cut Jerry loose?
Yes, and my understanding, and Jerry can correct me, but the workforce pipeline, at least the history I understand, is that it sort of grew out of this Universal project. We
Committee A
had
and Committee B, what did Jerry?
That's not completely true. but
not
we'll say it.
completely, but we like to. I think they call it retcon, where you change the past. But in part of the planning for Universal, there was discussion on how to develop the building, and so we talked to the Baxters and the Bowdors of the world and the school system college. But we also talked to those employers about, okay, we're building this building. How do we make sure we have students and folks that are looking for retraining to go in and utilize it? So it's not tumbleweeds blowing in the hallway. And so they had, and we won't take full credit for it, they had initiatives underway, and it was sort of all folded in together to make sure that for the building, there's definitely usage, but for the greater need of the community, we as a community are working to build our workforce for the 21st century. So Jerry Broome is in charge of a lot of those efforts, and he does a great job, and he has a lot of good news about what they've been doing and can share that with you.
Okay, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you, and I know we're behind time, and I'll talk fast. But I appreciate Ashley being, and Ashley stays connected with us, and that's important. You know, we talk about bystander awareness. I think that the biggest thing that'll upset most of the people I work with if we hear somebody within earshot saying there's no jobs in McDowell County. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Right. There's jobs for unskilled and skilled labor, for that matter. And I had planned to kind of bring you up to date since 2013, but I think because of time, I'm not going to do that. The Workforce Pipeline Committee was established. Matter of fact, I remember having a conversation with Dr. Wilson. He was even hesitant about this because we already had Committee B going, and he was afraid we might be asking too much. And I'm always believing that sometimes you don't have because you don't ask. And employers, and that's where we started with that, was we brought them together in the spring of, actually in January of 2014, and basically asked our employers what keeps you awake at night concerning your workforce. And probably the best way of all the answers we heard was one fellow said, if I were to get a call from the home office and they told me to open up an additional line and hire 30 more people, and this was his words, not mine, I would freak out. So that really in a nutshell, kind of talked about what we're talking about. And I know, and Chuck just left the room, but you know, a lot of times when things were happening, I'd ask Chuck, where are these people coming from? We're going to announce a new opening. Where are we going to get the folks? Matter of fact, the June unemployment rate just came out. It's 3.8% in McDowell County. And I want you to think about that a second, 3.8%. The other thing I want to update you before I leave, and I'll do that real quickly too, is we just had our job fair last Thursday down at Universal. And I'll give you some real quick numbers on that. But a couple of things that we're proud of that's happened probably in the last year. Beginning this fall, when school starts back, there is going to be a high school pre-apprenticeship program that's been established, and really as a result of this pipeline and talking with our employers and help, you know, and that was the initial message. You have to drive this bus. We can't sit all in our corners of workforce development and come up with these things that may or may not work. You know, we use the analogy of my good friend up at IAC, Kenny Green. They make carpets for automobiles. They get specific prints. That hole has to be in the right place. If it's somewhere else, guess what? They can't use that carpet. So one of the first things we did was created a 6-week manufacturing class, and it's really reaped real benefits. But again, that's just one of the problems. We have problems with folks showing up on time, showing up every day with the right attitude. That's what that addresses. But we're also talking about, with the pre-apprenticeship program, more specific hard skills that the employers are needing. And then really something that's going to be coming up, it was on last month's agenda, it's going to be on this month's agenda. Matter of fact, the pipeline will be meeting tomorrow, is really a strategic employment plan. And you think about 3.8% unemployment rate. Where are folks? I mean, you're looking at conservatively probably 600 jobs openings right now. I'm standing right here, right now. There's that many openings. Where are they going to come from? So this hopefully will help us identify, because we know, I mean, we got the full number of how many people aren't working that are drawing unemployment, but there's other pockets that we need to understand that maybe aren't captured in that. And that's what that will do. So that's one of the things I'm excited about, because I'll remind you that McDowell County is third in the state of North Carolina with its percentage of its workforce in manufacturing. It's 39%. I mean, you think about our existing customers and what they need. That's why this pipeline was formed. That's why we have these monthly meetings, is to have the conversations that we need to have, because it's such a big business for McDowell County. So that's why we do what we do. And to give you just an example, for example, Rutherford County, just below us, their unemployment rate's 5.8%. They have 15% of their workforce in manufacturing. We have over double that. Cleveland County has 19%. We have much more than that. So that's kind of where we're at. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state. Our neighbor, Buncombe County, is the lowest with 3.2. I mean, these are numbers that, again, I've been doing this a couple of minutes, and those are numbers that I haven't heard prior to this. So that strategic employment plan is going to be very, very important. Let me just wrap up with this. Last Thursday, we had our, this is our 5th consecutive, and we had been calling it the Veterans and Home and Community Job Fair. We always held it in August. Matter of fact, we'd moved it around a little bit. Matter of fact, let me give you those numbers now. In 2013, we held it at the Armory. The unemployment rate was 9.6%, and we had 700 attendees. The following year, we held it at the high school. The unemployment rate had dropped to 6.5%, and we had 480 attendees. In 2015, we did it again at the high school. The unemployment rate dropped from 6.5 to 5.8. We had 268 attendees. You see a pattern here, don't you? In 2016, we moved it to the Universal, where we are now, where we had it this year. Last year, the unemployment rate was 4.8%, and we had 223 attendees. This year, again, 3.8, and we came up with 244, which was an increase over last year. And what I hope was part of the difference, and this is going to be a kind of a campaign moving forward, is instead of it being the Veterans and Community Job Fair, we changed it to the Veterans and Homecoming Job Fair. Because here's our pitch. And we know how many folks are leaving McDowell County every day and driving to an adjacent county to work. And we know we got influx as well. But the message is, and this is why this is important, and the listeners and for you folks, when you talk to anyone, there are good jobs in McDowell County going unfilled. If you're driving to another county, just stop and do some simple math. And I think it would cause you to think, okay, well, maybe I'll pay more attention. You know, we realize that looking for work is not fun. It's a chore if you have to do it. But thinking about, because really where we're at in that 3.8, we're looking for folks that are willing to work, have a good work history, and can pass that magic test, which happens to be the drug screen. Those are important things, and that's a whole different conversation for a whole different meeting. But again, that's why that strategic employment plan is going to be so important, because if there's pockets of people that we can connect with and draw those into the workforce, that's what we need to do. Because again, I lose sleep when I hear about somebody's wanting to hire an additional 100, or they're wanting to hire an additional, you know, and you think about outside the county lines, there's a lot going on all around us. And so I think that effort to keep people at home may not be overwhelming, but I don't know about you, but I'd take 25 or 30 if I could get them. Good folks that are, you know, willing and have a good work history and want to work. And it all ties back to the Universal Manufacturing Center. I mean, I go down and talk to the instructors of the Industrial Systems program, for example. Most everybody he's got's working, which is good. They're upgrading their skills. That's great. And they're doing it with the cooperation of the company in many cases. But what we need is those new people. You know, we had, close to 450 high school graduates. We need to, and we've done a good job, Barry. I know we've done a good job, but we can do better in connecting, because a 4-year degree is not the answer for every single student. We all know that. I mean, there's some good money to be made in industrial systems, machining, welding. It's there, but just that's been the driving force of that manufacturing committee. Really was raising the awareness that there are good jobs. It's not low skilled, low pay. It's high skill, high pay. And if you go in some of these companies, you talk about technology and being on the cutting edge. A lot of times manufacturers are more on the cutting edge because they have to be. And if you want to see up-to-date stuff, you'll see it there. So those are our challenges. And just, I'll leave you on this, and then I'll entertain any question. But the state noticed us. In October 12th of this year, we're going to be receiving the Governor's NC Works Award of Distinction for an outstanding innovative partnership in the state because of, again, it's just really it grew out of, we got to work together. We got to understand what you want. Talk to us. Let's talk back and forth because, again, it's not an easy problem to solve. But we've made great strides, and I appreciate you guys staying connected with us and listening to this. And when somebody tells you there's no jobs, you point them in the right direction.
Okay, Jerry. Yeah, great. And I'm really impressed with the strategic employment plan, and look forward to hearing more about that in days to come. Because you're right, these manufacturers, there's a shortage of people who want to work. Nowadays, people want to draw a check and not work. And that's a younger generation thing.
Yep.
They've learned how to milk the system, and we've got to change that mentality.
We're looking for good people for sure.
We need the federal government to cooperate with each other to get things done.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
You did such a good job. You have no questions.
All right, sounds good. Any elaborate, Rob?
If there's anything that this board can do to help fuel the big engine you're running, just let us know.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And again, Ashley's involvement, it gives us a way to communicate because we do have needs from time to time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, now at this time we move to item E on our appointment schedule. We have our Health Department Director, I guess is that your specific title, Miss Karen Powell. Karen, come on up. She is with the Rutherford-Polk and Health District, and we're so glad you're here. And we've had a crisis, but Karen is working hard and her staff to go ahead and assist people, and we appreciate that sincerely. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for putting me on the agenda tonight. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come and address you and update you on our environmental health situation and literally the crisis that we are in. Unfortunately, this crisis has been building for some time, and I don't think you ever know when you're going to hit that point that we're in. So we are at a point right now. I did bring some numbers for you tonight. I called at the end of last week, and right now, and I'm only talking about on-site tonight, which is our well and septic, because that's really where our problems are. Our food and lodging seems to be right on schedule, and we don't really have any problems with that. So tonight, I called last week, and right now, we have about 57 outstanding applications, or waiting applications at the office. Now, that doesn't include potentially 7 to 8 that 2 of our weekend employees, which I'll talk about them in just a minute, our weekend employees have, and with them. So that's not included. Each of them carry around about 7 to 8 applications every weekend. So you have to put those into that stack. And then our environmental health supervisor carries probably that many with him too. So those were not included in the number that are in the office waiting. So they have those with them. So let me back up and tell you that many of you know this, and I've had this conversation with several of you. We did, I'll not go into a lot of the history, but we did, within the past year lose 2 of our employees, 1 retired and 1 separated from the agency. So that left 2 big vacant openings in the department. So we're working to fill those. And again, I don't need to tell you how hard those positions are to fill. They're tough. If you get somebody right out of school, the state makes them go through a rigorous year-long process before they'll cut them loose to work. So, for instance, we just hired 2 new guys approximately 11 months ago. They have to go through training with the state to get their authorizations, which would be on-site and wells. Then they have to come back and go out with other employees to do what we call mock permits to make sure they're doing them right. So that takes almost a year-long process until they can work alone. Now, here's the crazy thing about that. We just hired an employee that I'm talking about 11 months ago that's been working for the state for almost 30 years. He's been doing on-site for 30 years, but he'd been out teaching for 3 years, so they made him go back. So he's sitting in our office with 30 years experience, and he can't work by himself because he's in that training period still. I've called the state, I've called everybody and said, come on, can you not give me a little leeway with him?
Ridiculous.
And they won't. Now, our new people that are just coming out of school, they need that time to make sure they're doing it right. But these guys just don't. So that's the process that it takes to get them up and running. Now, to get somebody that already has their authorizations is hard. And so we're advertising all that time for that. I'm offering a sign-on bonus for somebody potentially that has their authorizations that doesn't have to wait. So we have filled that one position in McDowell. We still have one open. But as many of you know, we have hired the weekend people. We have 3 weekend people that come in right now. Now, I know that's not a very popular thing because a lot of people don't want to work on the weekends, but these guys are full-time in Buncombe County. So they come down on the weekends, and they can usually get 7 to 10 permits done in an entire weekend apiece. And that is awesome that they can help us catch up that quickly, especially if they're new permits. So they're doing that, and then now we've brought on 2 potential both retired, authorized in on-site and wells that can work during the week. Now, they're both retired, so they're limited in their hours that they can work, but they'll be able to work during the week. So that's 2 more people that we'll be adding to the staff that we have right now. So they should be coming on soon. And the new people that we hired that were in waiting, they'll be ready to go in September 1st. So in September 1st, the state will cut them loose, and they can work alone. So just that whole build up to losing employees and not planning, potentially 2 years ago, probably should have been planning for the booming amount of people that are applying for these permits. And I know you can't always see that, but I think you always have to pre-plan for that, and then you can always, for us as a district, one of the great things about a district is if we hire too many people, we can use them in another county. So you can never have, you can always have too many employees, but when you're in this business, you can't. Because if we get caught up in McDowell, we can always use them in another county to catch up. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So that's the situation that we're in right now. So we are telling people about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks potentially. That's gotten down because I looked back on just a couple of permits on Friday and said, okay, just pick one and tell me when it got called in and when it was sent out. And the one that I happened just to look at, honestly, because somebody had called me about it, was mid-July. So around July 15th, I think, the application came in, and it went out with one of our weekend guys on August the 5th. So the 15th to the 5th. So that's not, that's 4 weeks-ish, which is, that's a long time. And what I want to say to you is that I appreciate so much the position that these people are in, the well drillers and the contractors and all those people that we're working with, because I so appreciate where they are. So when they call me, I need them to understand that I know where they are. They're waiting on us because they can't do anything until we do what we have to do. And so I do appreciate where they are as well. But anyway, so that was about the 15th of July to August 5th for that one. So that's gotten down just a little bit because our guys on the weekends are really being able to do. And then I've got 2 employees within the health district, Steve Chambers, which many of you probably know. He is actually stationed in Rutherford County, but he spends 90% of his time in McDowell. And then we have an employee also in Rutherford County. She does food and lodging, but she's also has her authorization for well and septic. So we're paying her to come on the weekends up here too and help catch up because she can do that as well when she can. So anybody that raises their hand to work, we're bringing them on. So and then hopefully we can get that caught up. But like I said, right now in the office, we did have about 57 waiting applications. Another complaint that we've had too is that some will come in and put in a whole bunch of lots all at one time. And so we're trying to look at that and see how we can better, if you have a house right here, right now that needs to be inspected, lots that aren't being developed, we may put that in front of those. So
or a failed septic system.
Oh, well, those go right away. You should never wait for a failed septic, never. Maybe a day. You shouldn't have to. But we're trying to look at that process and see the organization of how our permits are done. So we are taking a look at that.
I will say about Steve is when I've called him, when a citizen's called and it's been a public health issue, they've dealt with it that day. Mm-hmm. And that's the public health departments. My question is it the state health department that sets the regulations on how long it would take someone? The gentleman that had 30 years, there's no excuse in that. And if that takes our board getting involved, I don't mind to do that. But we've got to make it easier for smaller counties to get these individuals.
Yeah, I
It's-
think that we need to pass that information on to, our congressman and our senator and let them
Let them handle it.
address the issue. But that's ridiculous.
It is. And I got a call last week from Josh Dobson, who actually used to be on our board. And so he and I had a long conversation. He knows the process. He said, I understand where you are. I remember hearing it. He said, but I'm making some phone calls because the employee, that particular employee, should not be sitting in an office answering the phone. He needs to be in the field.
And so I don't like the fact that they have to do mock inspection permits. Take them and put them in the field with another certified person. Let them do the real world hands-on training. Don't waste our time.
Right.
I mean, that just makes common sense.
We
to me.
don't have the time to waste on that. We just don't have it.
No.
And, I'm an advocate for the general contractors.
Absolutely.
So, we have to keep those guys going, they're, and I appreciate what you said about, the lots and developments and stuff that, we have to keep the contractors going because they're just, there's so many people involved that they're working
Right.
that's held up whenever
Absolutely.
we're held up.
And we had a long discussion at our last Board of Health meeting about what kind of process we can look at to organize those applications. And we're going to begin doing that and to start to take a look and say who needs to be where. And I think that might help as well if we do that.
Thank you.
Karen, going away from that, so each county, there's 3 counties in the organization.
Yes, sir.
Each county has 2, should have, when completely filled, 2 inspectors that do specifically on-site in the well, right?
Except for Polk County, we only have 1 there, but McDowell and Rutherford should have 2 on-site, yes.
Okay, so that's a total of 5. Now, just that way, anybody watching tonight will hear specifically, and you've said it, but it's been here and there.
Right.
So you've got, for McDowell, there's 2 spots, and we have 1 person that is the person that has got 30 years of experience that is having to sit and do the mock, and he's set to come on board when?
September.
September, okay, so McDowell will have 1 in September, okay, that's a 30-year man, and then you're still advertising for another full-time to work in McDowell?
Yes.
Okay.
Everywhere and anywhere we can.
And you need 1 more in McDowell.
Yes.
Then Rutherford, you have the Chambers gentleman. Steve Chambers. And he's off on Fridays?
No.
Okay. Well, somebody told me he's off on Friday. I want to make sure
Oh, my gosh, no.
If
He's not
somebody says he's
off
off
any
every
day of the
Friday.
week. He works Monday through Sunday.
Gotcha. Well, we can
No.
just tell that person that they have incorrect information then.
Here's our environmental health administrative assistant in McDowell is off on Fridays. She does not work on Fridays, but she's the only person that does not work.
Okay, good. Well, we can
No.
dispel a myth then.
Oh, Steve would die if he thought that.
Yeah. And you have 1 full-time currently there in Rutherford, and you've got another one hired.
I have 1 hired in Rutherford. He's still sitting still, just like the guy
He's
up
the one
here.
that should be coming on board.
September.
when?
Both of them will in September.
So you
And then
got a-
Steve is technically in Rutherford.
Okay, so that's fully staffed then, and September 1, really be going at it hard. And then Polk, you have 1 position there you're advertising for, correct, full-time?
No, we have 1. He's there, been there
he's
forever.
hired.
Yes.
So, and to me, that's looking good. And then you have 3 coming in from an adjoining county on the weekend,
Yes.
and they're doing 7 to 10 permits a weekend each. So that's good news. And then you have 2 more that come in during the week that are part-time. Retired that are working during the week, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and how many do they do typically a week each?
Well, they're brand new, so I don't really have a number for that yet. But I would say they're probably going to average, if you can get 2 to 3 done a day.
So the backlog, as we know it, should go away because we get calls
I know.
about wells and septics and the wait time, and we're charged to follow up. And I know you've heard from us and we've talked, and so that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that our citizens are taken care of, and as Tony said, that people whose livelihoods are dependent upon timely inspections to be able to pay his workers or anybody's workers,
Right.
you've got to have it. It's got to be done. So, to me, you're moving in a great direction. And the bonus, the hiring bonus, how many? That's a good thing. I think that's good because
I think so.
You're in a highly competitive field, right?
Absolutely. Right. And we are. And I'll tell you this too. We are one of the lowest paying counties. But, we've just had to step out of that. I mean, we've really had to step out of that and try to find ways to increase our salary because we just weren't competing, and that's unacceptable. So we've just had to cut this or cut that so we can bring that money in to raise those salaries to get those employees to come. And we are doing that. And that's hard to figure out how to make that happen, but it's crucial, and we're doing that.
We've got to look hard at that as far as health department salaries and building inspector salaries. Those are two
very low,
critical job
It is.
positions that we have to have, and the requirements for those jobs. The bar is set high for those guys.
It really
so
is.
we need to take a hard look at the money.
If we've got 57 outstanding now, how many do we have in Rutherford-Polk? It may not be any of our business.
Oh, it's fine.
Still, those guys can work in all three counties.
I did look that up. We have 47 outstanding in Rutherford. I don't know how many Steve has with him on those, on Rutherford, but I know we had 47 outstanding in Rutherford. And we probably have about 25 outstanding right now in Polk. Polk is not as bad, and we typically have just a couple, but things are changing in that county as well. And so it's starting to be something that we've never seen over there before either. Yeah.
And McDowell,
Yes.
and McDowell has went in as far as our obligation to the regional setup.
Absolutely.
We've increased our funding. So
Yes.
Anybody who would say that we're not being serviced to our people because of the lack of our commitment and funding, that would be a false statement too, correct?
I think so. And I didn't mention too, and let me go back when we're talking about our staff. We had a guy to retire in June in Rutherford County. He has to take 1 month off, and now he's back. So that is another one, and he'll be going to Rutherford and McDowell. So that's one more in the retired category. I forgot about him. He came back August 1st, so he's already working. And he just left in June, so he just came back in his office, picked up his stuff, and went out. So that's good. Yeah. That's
Karen, I've got another question, and I appreciate the hard work you've been doing. I mean, it's obvious you have hammered down on this situation, and with a lot of disappointment, I'm sure. But we've also been contacted, several of us, about the move that you're doing in the environmental health department to where a lot of the contractors are upset of the fact that they're going to have to go into the sick area to get permits. And is there any way around that?
Well, there is a way around that, and honestly, we cannot do that. The thinking behind that was the administrative assistant for environmental health does not work on Fridays. So Fridays is hard because
Is there some?
She has a medical excuse that she can only work 30 hours a week. So she does not work 40 hours. She only works Monday through Thursday. So on a Friday, I have to have one of my specialists stay in the office to answer the phone and do the window for people coming in because we can't have the window and the phone go unanswered. So our thinking was if we moved her up front with we have 3 other administrative assistants at the front desk, then on Fridays, they could cover for her without leaving their space. So if somebody for environmental health came in, they'd be right there. They could handle that person, and they wouldn't have to be, if all my specialists go out on Friday, there's a note on the door that says come back on Monday, and I don't like that. So I just wanted to figure out a way. Now, I can pull somebody from the front office to the back to sit, but that leaves us shorthanded in the front. So I thought if I moved her up there, then when the other assistants were short, she could help them and they could help her. But if that's a huge problem, then we cannot do that. I just have to figure out who's going to cover that window for Fridays.
Well, there's been a lot of complaints come to me about it, and I'm going to say even myself, I don't want to go in that area where all the sickness is if I can avoid it. And we have to go in to get our permits and stuff. So if there's a way around us having to go through that area, that would be great.
Okay, well, we can do that, but let me clarify one thing about that is we don't do sick care. So people shouldn't be in the health department if they're sick.
Really?
No, sir. We're not a primary care center. So we do maternity, we do WIC, we do immunizations, we do
Well, I've
child
been through
health.
there when little kids were throwing up.
Well, that could be. I'm not saying that's not the case, but we don't treat sick
So I
people.
don't know, maybe you don't treat them, but they're in there.
Well, that could be true. I'm not saying that, but we don't treat sick people. But if that's a problem, I mean, I don't want that to be a problem. I thought it was helping, but if it's not, then we'll just keep it the way it is now.
And I didn't understand your situation either, so I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I can just pull a front office person to the back on Fridays. That's one thing we can do, and do it that way, and just see how it works. I mean, we'll just play with it and see.
Okay.
I'm definitely willing to do that because I don't want it to be an inconvenience by any means. So let me look about that.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Matt, you're our representative on that board. Has your board, and I guess Ken, you can answer this too, have they written the state or legislators saying, look, with these 30-year guys, or I'm sure there's probably more people out there retired probably come back and work some. Have they addressed that?
Did a resolution
The health
asking
board?
the senators and the
They haven't.
House members in
I was
each
trying
of
to
the three
suggest
counties.
y'all do that, and I promise you, I'm
We would do
full-
that.
I'm in
We
full
would do
support
that,
right now, tonight, of doing that.
Make a
We ought to
motion.
go out-
To
draft
not
a
make these
resolution.
guys go back through
Right, I
that
understand.
training.
If
Is
they
that what
need-
you're
if they
saying?
need- If they need a year or something's changed, I can understand that. 'cause
He's talking about
DPS
experienced people.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
experienced people.
One.
That's
Yes.
ridiculous.
It's a
Right.
totally different story because DPS or Department of Public Safety did that stuff with me one time at Caltech. And they said, why? His credentials are all up to date. He's been teaching. Why do you do this to him? Because you have to go back and go through all this stuff again.
Right.
Well, they looked at it once, and it took one person, took the director, Stacy Buffman at Caltech. And he said, look, this isn't right. And they changed it. They looked at it. And they changed it within just a couple weeks. Now, if we need to throw the strong arm to them, then that's what we need to do. I served on that board for 6 years, and I know they talked about it. One of the things they was wanting to do is back off the inspection stuff. And I said, we can't. He said, well, it's bad times. We got money. We got budget. It's okay. Because when that time hits, you're going to be short. And where
here
you're
we
at
are.
right now,
Here we are.
and that's been 9 years ago or more. And I tried to tell them, we're not doing our building inspections that way, so why should the health department? Because you're going to get us in a bind. If we've got 57 outstanding right now, and you've got 25 comes in tomorrow, that's 75, 100. We're going to be getting the phone calls. Of course, we'll pick up. And I do appreciate your response back, because the one I did call never did respond back at all to me or to the individual. And they did later. And I appreciate picking up the phone and me having to stop my work,
Right.
and you pick up and make that call back. I appreciate that. But we need to draft up something. You need a motion, then
I will entertain a motion this time.
turn a motion. We draft a resolution to the
House and Senate.
House and Senate, if it needs to be Congress or whatever, need to come from the federal side, and even to the governor. I don't care if
Yeah,
they include the
sounds
governor
good.
in on it. That we revisit, or they revisit, the process of the retirees, the 30-year experience, not having to, I don't know how to word that, 30 years.
Well,
That's why you have county staff. They can
Requalify,
handle it.
requalify.
working on it.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Discussion? All in favor, let's say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Karen, we're not going to hold you up.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Karen.
And let's keep, you're going the right direction.
Yeah, and please, and I don't mind you calling me if you need an update, or you would like me to come and do an update, or I can send an update to Matthew and he can bring it to you. That's fine. I'd be glad to do that, just to kind of keep you.
This Home Builders Association is good to work with too. So.
We can do that, just so you know where we are and how things are going.
Okay. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, this time let's move to item number B, old business. This will be the shooting range update. Mr. Witten, go right ahead, sir.
This is a very brief update. And again, we mentioned it maybe at the start of the meeting. We have asked for some advice from the NC Wildlife staff on when they will be doing more testing in the county, and definitely for a public meeting. They have indicated that would be the next steps, and we have both tried to contact them, and I guess it is vacation time, but we will continue to press on them to give us some dates, that they're thinking about. So they will, again, they'll do a formal sound test at the Ashworth Road property, and then after that point, have a public meeting to receive comment. And they will run it. It won't be a county meeting. It'll be a NC Wildlife meeting, and the folks will get an opportunity to, in the neighborhood and elsewhere, I guess, opportunity to comment on it. So as soon as we know a date, we'll share it, definitely at this meeting and publicly, so folks know it continues to move.
I'd like to recommend that we don't allow this to sit more than a couple of weeks without jogging their memory on it, because the state is really bad.
I think we're on a weekly rotation. If Mr. Harmon has emailed them, then I'll contact them or call, and so we work on the different angles, definitely.
Good deal.
Okay, keep moving forward. The residents of McDowell County would love to have a place where they can shoot it, and bring, and it'll be a draw to the counties coming in here too. So that's been told by the county down east, or you visit the county? Cleveland County. Yeah, Cleveland County. So hopefully we can duplicate that even to a greater degree. Let's move to item number C, the Greenway update. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. So we've talked many months about what we call Phase 3 of the Greenway. And again, this is primarily focused on the former river park out on Old Greenway Road. The county was awarded about a year ago a North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. There's about a $500,000 plus dollar project with that funding that will construct about 2,000 linear feet of greenway. There's a dog park that's proposed to go in, and a couple other amenities. And so the first step, obviously, is to have a design and permit in place. And again, we've mentioned that we advertised for engineers. We had a review and selection process, and McGill Associates, I think we mentioned last month, was the most qualified engineering firm to submit a qualification statement. And we have met with them a few times to talk about what the scope would be, and we thought it would be prudent. You see in the document before you, it talks about different sections or phases or parts. There's a main section that deals just with the former park property. It would do the floodplain permitting, the Army Corps of Engineers permitting, et cetera, and the design for that park. What we thought would make a lot of sense, since we are in the process of selecting an engineer, is to also hire them to do additional work, that being design work for the extension to the northeast over the Woody and Miller properties that we have easements for, and also to do some permitting work for a bridge that will need to be built to cross over towards the Tom Johnson Camping Center. And so we wouldn't maybe ask for that work if we didn't have funding already identified for that work. We mentioned last month that the state had provided $500,000 of funding for the Greenway extension. So that's in addition to the $250,000 Part F grant and the other local matching dollars. So the intention is to use that $500,000 for the Greenway Bridge and any additional extensions that could be made. So again, we wanted to make sure McGill was starting off with that in their scope. And so it does increase the cost of the contract more than it would be just for the park project if it was just on its own. So, and again, so we've broken that cost out so you can see on the cover. It is more than just the original scope. So staff would ask that you approve that agreement so we can get moving on the project.
Okay, comments or questions? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we approve the contracts proposed for $88,430 to McGill Associates.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move to item number D under old business, the fire protection ordinance. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Last month, you had Mr. Keller and Mr. Walker here to talk about the fire protection ordinance draft. As an ordinance that the Fire Commission had requested, and there was some discussion about whether some of the things that in the ordinance are covered by state law, and this does allow for some more immediate addressing of issues and maybe some more educational avenues than state law allows. You did ask that the planning board look at the draft, which they did, and they recommended it unanimously for approval. The county attorney has looked at it. He did want us to point out, and we probably should put it in the language, that a violation of a county ordinance is a Class 3 misdemeanor just by state law, so any violation of any county ordinance is. So he just thought maybe we should put that in the text. It's not creating any new penalty. It's already there. It's
state law anyway.
Yes, sir. So we would ask that you approve the ordinance with that text included, and you can make it effective this evening if you want to wait till September 1st. It doesn't hurt our feelings either way.
Okay, comments or questions? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve the fire protection ordinance, including the language that it's a Class 3 misdemeanor, taking effect immediately.
Heard the motion, have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay? Let's move to item E under old business, the watershed reclassification update. Mr. Wooten, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. And I'll ask Mr. Herman if he'll maybe come forward. He can get in a little more detail, but I'll try to keep a 30,000-foot view. We've mentioned that in May of this year, the Environmental Management Commission in Raleigh was presented with the reclassification of the Lake James watershed. They approved that unanimously. There's a rulemaking process that took a month or two to go through and allowed the public more opportunity to comment on the rulemaking. There were no comments, and the rule was approved as of July 1st. And so you have a copy of a letter that was sent to the McDowell County, Burke County, and the City of Marion, which are the three entities that will now be required to either develop watershed ordinances or amend the ordinance and the map if necessary to include these protected and critical areas in their watershed protected areas. So that's sort of a 30,000-foot view. Mr. Harmon deals quite a bit with watersheds as relates to the City of Marion's watershed. So he can talk a little bit about what we'll have to go through now, the process, and so we wanted to be up front with the public and what we're doing.
What we'll need next is a charge from the board, for the planning board, to insert the language for the watershed 4 into the current watershed ordinance. Ironically, about 7 years ago, we removed a small section of watershed 4 out of the same area. So we're going to be reinserting that, and we need to work with our tax mapping department to make the new watershed map. We'll have to send that to Raleigh to be approved for accuracy, and we have until March to get this done.
Yes, sir.
So if we can get a charge tonight so we can get started on it this month, we'd be much appreciative.
What was the time, how long has it been since we began the process to have the reclassification take place? How many years has that been in the making now?
3, 4?
At a minimum. There's been a lot of work before that, but the actual process, there's some issues you had to work out with the city. Work with Burke County was probably the easiest, but it's just a lot of steps you go through.
Dean Budd was serving on this board as a commissioner, and we were talking about a future water filtration plant then.
That's right.
And I sure hope that it doesn't take as long up to this point moving forward to get a future water filtration plant, because we want to have a designated place for water, because how essential is water? You need water to survive. So we want to make sure that we have the capabilities, and that's going to occur, and it's moving forward. And so we appreciate the staff and the planning board wanting to go ahead and have the charge from the board of commissioners to move it forward and not delay in moving it forward.
And there's ancient history we could spend forever talking about, but it takes a lot of folks looking at this all the way from obviously the state level. There are some federal agencies that are looking and will continue to look at it. But there are other water users in the region going all the way down to South Carolina that when they hear about how small of an impact this would be on their operations, they don't really blink, because we're talking up to 1 million gallons per day that would be taken out of Lake James, which in the grand scheme of things is not much of an impact at all when you consider the hundreds of millions in the lake. And so there's not much of an impact as far as the downstream users. It's not going to affect the lake level. There was a concern expressed the public comment period. We're not talking about a large amount of withdrawal that would affect it. And a lot of that has to do with where the intake is being placed. It's in a deep area of the lake. And so it's definitely being looked at on all different angles.
It wouldn't be even noticed, that much water.
Any questions for Ron? Okay, there being none.
Motion, we have the planning board propose amendments to the watershed ordinance to comply with the reclassification area.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second.
Second it.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Thanks, Ron.
And we will stay in touch with the city of Marion and Burke County to make sure we're all sort of moving along with it, so there's not a hold up on anyone's end.
Okay, let's move to item F under old business. This is the 226 sewer interlocal agreement. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Yes, this was prepared by the city of Marion, and we've looked at it, and it's boilerplate essentially for past agreements. Again, the anticipation was that the state would award a grant of $120,000 towards the construction of the sewer line to serve the proposed hotel 226 South. For a number of reasons, that was cut in half to $60,000, and so the city manager and I spoke with the property owner. He and his company are investing quite a bit of money to get the infrastructure to 226 to the road, and so he did agree to add a nominal amount towards the cost to get it to the stoplight there, which was included in the agreement. So what you would see, what the county would agree to do would be to pay $57,075 this fiscal year and the same amount in next fiscal year for a total of $114,150. And the city would handle the bidding, any financing that would be required, et cetera. And it will be a city sewer line upon completion.
Okay, here's another example of a partnership, cooperation, working together, and it's not only going to be a motel or hotel. The goal is to have other businesses located in that on that same site.
And I should point out too that it will allow several county buildings to be connected to city sewer as well,
which is a side benefit.
That is right.
To our contribution to the overall scheme of things.
I met with the building owner, and for failure to pronounce his name right, I'm not going to do it. And I met with his engineer, and he's got a very respectable engineer company hired, so it's going to happen.
Okay, well, that's positive. Bring people off the interstate, allow them to spend money here in McDowell County. So what's the pleasure of the board? Any other comments, questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we go ahead and approve the $114,000 over a 2-year period to be used for the expansion.
Okay. We have a motion. A second. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Let's move to the new item we added under old business. health department. And I want to say, as Karen's still here, now Karen, this is not a sleight of hand. As county commissioners, we are charged to do a lot of things. And so one thing we want our county staff to do, just planning here down the road, is to look at the possibility of the cost to have a standalone, run the specific terminology. Actually, you'll fill in the blanks. Standalone health department. And, just examine that. We've had, for years, we've had people ask why we've not explored that. And so we've not done anything. So to do our due diligence, we need to at least examine the cost. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. If the board's agreeing to that, is have them just examine the cost to run a standalone. And you may look at the cost, which cost of running a 3-county. It may be cost prohibitive. So it's just another option we've got to pursue. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we go ahead and have a study done on this to see if it would at all be feasible.
Okay, got a motion, have a second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, like sign. Okay, all right, let's move to item A under new business. This is the Mission Health Update, Blue Cross update. As we know, there's been a little bit of a disagreement between the two organizations mentioned. So, Mr. Wooten, you have been working diligently to make sure that our county staff will still be served medically. So go ahead and bring us up to date.
It's an interesting topic because you put this on the agenda, and your first thought is that I as staff, as manager, need to update the board on an employee benefit. And so the public can know, I don't care, that county employees are covered by Blue Cross. And so, we have an obligation to take care of our employees. So that's item one. Item two is that we have an obligation to look out for the people in McDowell County, whether they work here or not. And so there are about 260,000 people in Western North Carolina that have Blue Cross insurance. And so, probably a large percentage of those are state employees, state retirees. You have city and county governments that have Blue Cross. They're a very popular insurance provider because they are typically accepted at most medical practices throughout the state and the country. And so a lot of times they do have good rates, have a good reputation, and they're on a day-to-day basis, they're great to work with our HR staff. No issues there. Where it becomes, the alarm starts to raise a little bit more is when something like this becomes public, where a dispute comes out and there's allegations on both sides, and there's arm crossing, they don't want to talk to each other, it's posturing, et cetera, whatever. And that's, we understand. I think one of the news reports compared it to DirecTV and ABC having a fight. And that's not that big of a deal compared to, lives, and this is what this is in health. And so where we're at, especially internally, I'll talk about that, we have met with our broker, and obviously they have many employers they're working with in the region trying to identify, okay, what happens on October 5th once that contract is expired. And so right now we don't have a plan from the broker or otherwise to say this is what we would do. Short of having some plan in place, our only option would be, or a couple options would be to tell our employees, if you go to a mission provider for non-emergent care, you're going to have to pay the out-of-pocket cost, and that could affect the county. Another option, we have Carolina's Medical in the county, on the facility on Sugar Hill Road. We could direct them there, or if they had to go to the hospital, they could go what most people still call Grace. Obviously, a lot of people in this community, and especially employees as well, use mission practices. They like their doctor. They don't want to change their doctor. I have a mission doctor, I'm telling you. And so I don't want to change doctors just because of this dispute. So there's a lot of desire on a lot of our parts that they work out this disagreement. We meet quarterly with Mission Health, and coincidentally, maybe not, we met with them today. And their representatives gave their point of view on, I hate to say why they're right, but they have their point of view in negotiations. If we met with Blue Cross, I'm sure they would have all different other kinds of points of view, and it all comes down to dollars and cents. Healthcare is very expensive. It's probably very obvious, but it's really coming down to where the give is going to be. So internally, again, where we are, we're looking with our broker to identify any ways to reduce the impact to employees if there is no resolution effective October 5th. And we still have the same concern externally October 5th, just for the folks in the community. We are starting to see it in some of our EMS transports, where folks are asking to be sent to Carolina's Medical instead of Mission because they're worried about the insurance. And one point we did want to make for our employees and the public is that Blue Cross is still accepted at Mission practices. And there is some misleading information, if I can say that, from Blue Cross that Blue Cross is no longer accepted at Mission effective now, and that is not the case. And so folks that work here or elsewise can still go to Mission practices through midnight on October 4th for non-emergencies. And then there is some other situations where they can continue care with Mission if they're in cancer treatment or pregnant, et cetera, and continue that relationship with Mission as well as emergencies. But so obviously it's something that we wanted to make sure had a public airing, and that it is a huge concern of us as an employer and as community leaders as well. And we put it as a requested action. I don't recommend, and you can do whatever you want, I don't recommend taking sides. But if you want to, that's up to you guys. I would request and suggest that formal communication be sent to both. And I'm sure that's happening all over the place, just asking them to sit down and work it out. Because we all suffer when they don't, including the two of them. So that's what we would ask, that you allow us to send a letter, maybe from the chairman, that they just work it out.
Okay, comments, questions?
I think it's the right thing to do. You're right. We're protecting employees plus the citizens, so.
Okay, what's the hear motion?
I make a motion you go ahead and allow staff to draft a letter and send it to both parties.
Okay, do we have a second? Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, let's move to item number B. Item B, under new business, this will be administrative items. Mr. Wood, go right ahead, sir.
Quickly, I know it's getting late, but you've got a couple items here. The first is about 6 or 7 write-offs for EMS accounts. These are folks that have passed away without an estate, and so we would ask that you write off those uncollectible EMS accounts.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to write off these accounts.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay.
Then the other item under the finance, there are 3 vehicles that staff would like to finance in addition to 6 ventilators for EMS. You have the resolution attached from BB&T. The term is 4 years at 2.2%. And so we would ask that you accept that financing bid and approve the resolution.
These are Fords, right?
Yes, sir.
Make anything else?
Okay, gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion we approve the financing bid and resolutions.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay.
Okay, moving right along, we have tax matters. If it's okay to move on. We do have the first item there, again, 7 or 8 late elderly exemptions. And these are folks that have said maybe they have missing paperwork or et cetera, that are asking for the elderly exemption be granted. And so we have those. You have the typical tax-free bills, releases, et cetera. And there is request for a waiver of a late tax listing. So North Carolina treats a late business listing as a discovery, and a discovery is a 10% penalty. And so you have the letter there from the business asking that that penalty be waived of that 10%.
Okay, comments, questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve all tax matters.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Let's move to item D, board appointments, and we have the Adult Home Care Nursing Home Advisory Board. This is a second reading. Don Ramsey has applied for reappointment, and he is the only person that has applied. So mark your ballot. And then we have the Industrial Facilities and Pollution Control Financing Authority Board has 2 vacancies, which they will advertise or will be advertised for. They are asking our board to reappoint the 5 current members who have applied. So mark your ballot, gentlemen, let's pass it on in.
And that second one is a little unusual. We would ask that you reappoint what you're doing. That is an authority that approves financing for special projects. And sometimes it's good to just keep that roster updated. You never know when you might use it.
Okay. Madam Clerk will give the totals.
It's unanimous for all.
Okay, all right. Now, at this time, let's move to citizen comment. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak? We have come on, just start towards the front and just write your name and your topic. All right, there be no one else who wishes to speak and who has not signed up. Any reports, communications, board members, staff or fellow board members?
No, we would just again ask that you adjourn to next Monday at 5.
Okay.
That's what date?
21st.
Make a motion we adjourn until next Monday, the 21st at 5 o'clock.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second. Nobody wants to adjourn?
Second.
I was just saying, you stay here, guys. All right, discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.